welcome everyone to this edition of Walking in Spirit and Truth. It's good to have you all this evening joining us today. We're going to continue with our study on Psalm 91. Let's talk about life of worship and the things going on at Life of Worship. And so stay on top of things and abreast what's happening here at this ministry, as you can go to our website at www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Sandy's been working really hard to stay on top of the website and keep it updated and posted. And you can connect with us also over at our YouTube channel at Life of Worship Amarillo. So you can catch up on any of the messages that we've been giving at Life of Worship, the tour portions, all of that good stuff.
We are going to jump right on into our teaching tonight. We have been studying out Psalm 91 very, very, very slowly. And tonight we are still moving at a slow pace, but we want to discuss trust. And
but the pace is so good. The pace is good because it's making us dig into these things that are great. So,
all right,
I had to say that.
Thank you. So if everybody will get their word out, and let's turn to Psalm 91, and we're going to read just verses 1 and 2 today. Psalm 91 verses 1 and 2.
All right. And I'm reading from the Hebrew Roots version. And Psalm 91:1, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide in the shade of the Almighty. I will say to Yahweh, my refuge and my fortress, my Elohim, I will trust in him.
Okay, so verse 2, I will say of Yahweh, he is my refuge and my fortress, my Elohim, in him will I trust. I want to just look at this real quick before we jump into the word trust. It immediately says, I will say. That's an action. Doesn't say I will think. It doesn't say I will contemplate. It says, I will say of Yahweh, he is my refuge and my fortress. So there is something that happens there. We're declaring who he is because we are declaring what he's doing for us, what he's done for us. We are using our voice, not just thinking things or just praying things silently, because I'm not an advocate of silent prayer. I believe we need to pray out loud, and y'all know that. So here we are. I will say of Yahweh. What we say releases Yah's strength and his power. That spoken word has power. And in humility, we're really declaring our relationship with him because he's the one that transforms our circumstances of our testing when we're going through these tests over and over. And it's based on what we declare, because when we hear it, faith comes by hearing, right? So if faith comes by hearing, what are we hearing? We're hearing ourselves declare that word, and it gets into our hearts and our minds, and we believe and we stand because what we say has power. You hear people say it all the time, and you hear us say this all the time, but it doesn't make it any less true. What we say builds our tomorrow, and we're living on what we said yesterday. Yeah. What we declare as a people, life and death, so much in our lack of trust. But here, I will say of Yahweh, I will say of Yahweh, you are my refuge and you are my fortress. In you I will trust. So understand that, because what we say, it also reveals who and what we believe in. What's the most important thing in our life? What are we declaring? What's on our heart? Are we worthy of him? Do we walk in obedience? To say he is Yahweh says he's the right hand of God's power. Remember, that's Yeshua, the right hand of God's power. He is that's talking about his power and strength, and he's at work completing what he started in us, completing something within us, causing us to fulfill the purposes for which he's called us. He's giving us revelation, and he wants us to pay attention, to listen, because that revelation is coming through, because Yeshua connects us. He connects us between heaven and earth. He is Yahweh. He wants our time. He wants us to do more than passively represent our faith. He wants us declaring it. We trust in you. He's revealing his power, and he wants us to realize that he is the one at work. He's the one doing it. He is the one that has secured our place. He is the ultimate covenant maker, and he's a keeper. He takes care of us. Yeshua himself. You wanted to jump in there?
Well, I did, and that whole word to say, and I think you've mentioned it before, the word amar, which gives us another part of that definition, means to intend. to intend. And Sandi, you were alluding to that, is that it really speaks about the intention of our heart. And so like we've talked about this many times before, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It really tells us what's in our heart. So when I will say of Yahweh, my refuge and my fortress, my Elohim in whom I trust, it is not words that are just spoken out there. It's about an inner deep belief of who he really is to us.
That's exactly right.
And it is an action by which I would have to say, I will say of Yahweh, my refuge and my fortress, in him will I trust. That means that there's nothing else I'm trusting in, or no one else I'm trusting in. It's him and him alone. That's my full intention. And then everything I do from this point out, everything I do that expresses my life means that it's not, I do not have a divided heart.
That's good. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I want us to read just a couple other verses. We could find so many verses in Scripture concerning trust, but we're just going to go to a couple other places before we break the word down. So let's look at Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 6. Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 6.
Okay.
All right.
I'm getting there. Proverbs 3, 5 through 6. So trust in Yahweh with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy paths, or he shall direct thy paths. Okay. So that's how the King James Version. I did not switch back to Hebrews.
Okay. Bible, and now let's jump to 31:14.
31:14.
Right.
So I'm having to do it electronically today, because my paper
and we're focusing in on that word trust. Remember, we just read, trust in Yahweh with all your heart, and don't try to figure it out yourself. Don't lean on your own understanding of it. Okay. You have it?
It was
31:14.
She is like the merchant's ships.
No,
she brings
that's not right. That's afar. Not it. I must have written it wrong. I should say it. But as for me, I trust in you, O Yahweh. I say, you are my Elohim. Okay. So we'll try to find what that verse is so I can put the correct tag on that. But here, let's go ahead and break the word trust down. It's batach, B-A-T-A-C-H. And many of you probably are listening to this and have heard something on this word before. People have studied this out. We've done it on other shows before as well. But in Hebrew, this word expresses really a sense of well-being and security that results from having something or someone in whom to place confidence. This is really going to springboard from that, but there's more, because it's also translated. Some say you can say believe in, trust and believe in. I'm not so sure that I completely agree with that, because I don't think most people, I think believe is a word that most people don't understand either. But others would say it's to hope. And in the positive sense, to rely on Yahweh, to be persuaded, to hope in him. But let's go ahead and break that word down. Let's look at the first letter of that word, the ba, which is the bait, which is a house. And there's a lot more to it. I usually break it down more, but for time's sake, we're going to go real simplistic here. And then we have a tet, right? And it's in English, and it means shelter or refuge or security. And when I say those words, just in these first two verses, we keep hearing these words over and over describing Yahweh and what he's doing for us and his character. And it's almost like it's repeating itself with another word that has a meaning that means the word we just used, very similar. And I think he's trying to get it through our heads, trust in him. I mean, I'm your refuge, I'm your shelter, I'm your strength. Trust in me. So the next letter is a het, which signifies a fence. And when you look at those letters together, just real simplistically, you look at a house where you will find shelter and refuge and security, a fence to secure you. It's a fence. His house is a fence to secure us when we trust in him. Because really, trust is a union with Yahweh, and it witnesses the fruit of the Spirit and new beginnings with us. When we trust in him, he's taking care of us, and he's making sure he's making sure that we are provided for, that our future is good, and he's wanting us to know he's got us. But here's the problem. Most people say we trust in Yahweh, but our action is we trust in other things first. Doctors, men, opinions, before we ever say we trust in him. So our actions don't always meet what our words say. But if we remember that that's a house, trusting in him, we're leaning on him, trusting in him is a house where we find shelter and refuge and security, the fence that protects us. How could we not trust in? How could we not work on learning to trust and learning to rest in that trust? In general, when we look at the Tanakh and we look at the Old Testament, there's a sense of confidence that becomes with the reliance on Yahweh. We should be so confident when we trust in him, not in man, not in chariots, not in horses, but when we trust in him, that we know it's a sure thing, that we're taken care of because we totally rely on him. And in reality, when you look at the Hebrew way to look at it, the way trust is in the word, to rely on anything or anyone else, any system, any man, in anything whatsoever, is literally folly. It will lead to your destruction. It may look good for a minute, but it will ultimately lead to your destruction. Can you just picture Yahweh looking at us and we say we trust in him, but not with our finances, or not with our kids, or not with our circumstance, or things aren't working out quickly enough, so we try to make it right and intervene when we've been waiting for a certain period of time, and he shakes his head. He says, you don't trust in me. And it literally leads to folly. I know if I said how many of you guys who are going to be listening to this program have said we trusted, and you did for a time, but the time grew long and all of a sudden you took matters into your own hand, I'd have to raise my hand on that. If we were honest, we all would. But we are to hope in him. Psalm 22:4 says, our fathers trusted in you. They trusted and you delivered them. Now, when David wrote this, his security and his confidence, he says, you are my God, back in Psalm 31:14, which we read earlier, which was, but as for me, I trust in you, O Yahweh, you are my God. Okay, you are my Elohim. David is making a declaration in a time when having many gods was more the rule than the exception. Having one God was a little not ordinary, for sure. And David is saying, I trust in you are my God. There's only one. There's so much packed in his declaration. It should be the declaration that comes forth from our mouth as well, because he's saying, it's only you. I don't have any other way, and I don't want any other way. I trust in you. You have it in your hands. You've got me. I know it. He's restricting help from anything and anyone else. Are we brave enough to do that? I'm not going to trust in this way, and I'm not going to trust in that way. Though everybody in logic and society says, go for your financial security, do this or do that. For your children, better add this. If you're going to survive what's going on outside, you better do A, B, C. But David's saying, no. I'm restricting my help completely to one, and it is the great Yahweh, Yah Almighty. There is no other help. I won't receive and I won't take help from anything else. David, he's declaring that I'm not going to trust in anything else but you, Yahweh. And second, he's saying, hey, I totally rely on Yahweh. I rely on you above all else. And his well-being, his security, his hope, his future, it's only going to be resolved. How? By Yah's hand. Not my hand, not anyone else's, but it's only going to be resolved by your hand, oh Yah. Are you in a situation today, areas where you're facing financial issues, family issues, social issues, job issues, community issues, congregational issues? Are you out there right now and there are battles and fronts that you think, health issues even, that you may think that are insurmountable, and all these voices are out there and all this logic is out there in the society, but have you gotten to the place where you say, I'm going to shut all the other voices off and I'm only going to trust in you? Without you, there's no other solution, and I'm not going to look anywhere else. And I know I not only trust in you, I know that I'm taken care of because of it. That's hope. David's only hope was Yah. That should be our hope. When we trust in men, expect it to fail ultimately, because with Yah, everything may be at stake, but everything is secure. But with man, everything's going to crumble, period. So my God, my Yah, in you I trust. Let me not be shamed. Let my enemies not gloat over me. That's Psalm 25:2. I trust. Again, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about some of these things that you were talking about, and in that definition, where it means to cling or security, and what's what you're saying, holding on to something or someone by clinging or confiding. And so if we trust in Yahweh, confide is where we also get the words confidence, and we also get the word not a confidence, or to be confident. And so we can, but to confide means that we can speak to him, and that what we're speaking to him is not going to be violated. That is another area of trust. And because it relates to communication, it relates to that part where there's an interaction where both parties are participating in this act. So we say, I trust in Yahweh. So trust in Yahweh with all your heart. If we say those things, then does it mean, does our life actually represent that we're having that one-way conversation? Well, shall we say two-way conversation, because that's when we're confiding with him. But when we press in, it is our, and it goes back to the issue of the heart, is our heart betraying us of who we are truly clinging to?
It's true.
Because Sandy, you hit the nail on the head, because when you said, are we trusting in the doctors, or are we trusting in Yahweh? Are we trusting in medicine, or are we trusting in Yahweh? Now, Yahweh can direct us to a particular doctor, or direct us to a particular type of medication or a natural remedy. It just depends on one circumstance or another. But in reality, as one person in our congregation said, we were saying, his daughter was sick, and he says, yeah, I know about that remedy, but we pray first. And I mean, that is what betrays our heart. Our heart is betrayed in confiding with Yahweh first and laying it down to him. And then his shalom and his peace rests upon us as to what remedy we follow, whether it's a supernatural intervention and we allow for that to take place in our lives, or he directs us to another path, because he has provided so many different means for us to live, and to live in all wholeness in this world. Right. So anyway, I just wanted to mention those things as well.
And that's really good. And another reason we have trouble trusting in him so much in our life is because we compartmentalize everything. This part of our life for work, this part of our life for congregation, this part of life for me, this part of life for my family. And we have this tendency to so compartmentalize our lives that Yah fits in one of the compartments or a couple of the compartments, but not necessarily all of them. And you have this tendency as men and women, as human, we have this tendency to place those parts that we're not using under lock and key, because we don't trust him or anything else, actually. And so everything is kept securely, and keep God out of that place, sort of. And
because it's a habit, isn't it? I mean, think about it. If we do not bring, if that is an area of our lives that we're not used to bringing God into, we may not even think about bringing him in, because we've compartmentalized it. I mean, that's a really good way to say it. It's like, oh yeah, he's involved in my life. I love Yah with all my heart and all my strength. And yet we only have a dimension or even the capability, because we haven't, sometimes our thinking is so limited, we don't necessarily always put them into those other circumstances,
or even
those other situations, because it hasn't become habitual.
And here's something. We think, okay, I'll pull you out for the big stuff, y'all. But for the little stuff, I'm not going to sweat it. I've got it. And I've told you guys before that even as I get on the anytime I get on the highway, I say, and Amarillo's even learned that now. At her 3 years, she's learned that Sonny is going to say, okay, Father, make an opening for me as I get on this highway. And inevitably, every time, without exception, all of a sudden the car's parked as I get on, and I have no issue. And that's something small. Is it a miracle? You know what? It's provision for me. That's what it is. And it's putting him, I didn't say, you don't need to be in this part or this part of my life because it's so small and it really doesn't matter. Pull him, Yah is with you all the time, and he wants to be an intimate part of your life always. So let's not compartmentalize, because if you look at David has this completely different worldview. He's concerned with the glass house public exposure living. He's living in this open place where everybody sees. And Hebraically, that's the only way we can trust in him, is because our people do read our lives, how we act and how we react. And Hebraic thought, you can't trust Yahweh in secret. Doesn't work. What do I mean by that? Your actions should loudly declare who you trust in, even if you seem a fool, because in the end, only those that trust in man and man's ways and horses and chariots will be made the fool. But when you trust in him, you won't. So you can't do it in secret. You've got to do it out loud, and everybody will know it because they can read it all over your life, who you're rock and who you're trusting in. Yah is not a God of these watertight compartments to be taken out when it's the right time or the right thought or the right situation. He's Yah of everything, of all the time. In fact, the Hebrew idea of deliverance is a picture of an open plain. When you think about deliverance, it's this open plain, and it's removed from the narrow and confining valleys. It's an open plain. That's trusting in him. We walk through the valley of the shadow of death so we can get to the open field. And so there in the open field, yeah, we can stay on the narrow straight, but he wants us in that place that what's in the field? Abundance. David was transparent. That's why he was quick to repent. We need to be transparent. We need to return to the garden where nothing was hidden. Don't try to think, don't even think that those thoughts in your heart or something are hidden from him. He knows what they are, because I trust in you is the equivalent of saying, I see through you. I know your innermost thoughts. I see your actions. I know what you're thinking. Because remember, trusting is done out loud. It's not done in secret. To me, that would cause us, if we would remember that, the people who declare themselves people of faith would live a lot differently. But the reason we don't live that way, if you break everything down, it's all about fear. We really fear. We fear to trust in him completely. We may try to convince ourselves that we don't, but it's true, we do. And if we live a life that's full of compartmentalized areas, then opening them up and exposing them to him involves fear, because we've grown up and keep those things private. Keep it to yourself. Keep it close to your chest. We've heard that before. But trusting in Yahweh is admitting, hey, I've got a lot of responsibility. I'm carrying a lot of things, and I can't do it without you. In fact, I am nothing. I am nothing without you. So why are we hesitant? We've got to put aside fear and trust out loud, no longer in secret, out loud. And remember that that keeps us protected, and it keeps us in this fence of protection. Now, from here, I wanted to just look at a prophetic word that was given in the last year by Katie Barker from Australia. And she's really talking about trust. And I really think parts of this word are just very appropriate. And so I'm going to be reading from it, because open your heart, because I think it has a message for us. She says, and this is a word, it's a prophetic word. So at Life of Worship, we do operate in the gifts of the Spirit. And that means the prophetic words of knowledge, as well as healing and miracles and everything else. So we do believe in this stuff. Anyway, she said that, and also we are to trust in the path he has prepared for the promise. She said there's a need to stay in step with the leading of his Spirit and not make a way in our own strength in order to reap a greater harvest. He wishes to bring and to walk in advancement for us. I like that, though. It says, don't make a way in your own strength in order to reap a greater harvest. How often do we do that? It says the Lord is looking for those who do not have who not only have faith, he will bring the promises to pass, but those who trust in his timing. This is an hour of great change. Is that not appropriate? This is an hour of great change, and we are to stand in faith in a position of rest. We've talked about that before. We are to stand in a position of rest and allow him to reveal the way. And she goes on to say in this word, she says, I heard the Lord say, those who trust in me, trust in my timing. Many people have faith to believe I will fulfill the promises I've spoken, but they are not in a place of trusting the path to the promise of trusting in my perfect timing. Those who truly trust me are those who have faith to believe the promise and are surrendered to my timing, knowing my timing is perfect. Great change is at hand in the earth for individuals and ministries and regions and nation. In this strategic time, it's critical for my people to embrace my timing. And as my people walk in step with my Spirit, they begin to walk in my timing. For God's timing yields the full harvest. Goes on to say, in this word, I am opening new paths and doors in this hour, but those who move ahead of my timing or who open doors in their own strength will negate the full harvest I intend to bring. The journey to seeing the fulfillment of the promise is a journey of ongoing steps of faith and obedience, steps taken in swift obedience on the leading of the Spirit, but from my position of rest, knowing I am faithful to fulfill my promises in my timing. Those who trust in my timing will look back and see my hand at work and will see the way I orchestrated things for their good. They will see how my timing opened doors of greater harvest and advancement. Proverbs 16:9 says, within your heart, you can make plans for your future, but Yahweh chooses the steps you take to get there. Zechariah 4:6 says, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Hebrews 10:23 says, let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. Trust in God's timing from a heart position of rest. From that position of rest, guys, that speaks volumes. This article goes on to say this word, the Lord said, those who trust in my timing live from a position of rest, and they are filled with shalom. Those filled with shalom are those who believe in my word. They believe my ways are higher. I will work all things for their good. I order the times and seasons. I direct their path, and I am faithful to fulfill all I have promised. Isaiah 55:8. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, declares Yahweh. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love Yahweh, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purposes. And then again, Proverbs 3:5-6, which we read earlier, trust in Yahweh with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Daniel 2:21, he changes times and seasons. Okay, so there's a lot more to that verse, but the article goes on to say, our heart position of rest is one of surrender to me and trust in me. I am looking for those who are at rest, for they are the ones who know me and live by faith. I know the plans I have for my people, and I will complete what I have started. I am never a minute too early or a minute too late. Many people live in a place of unrest and striving when I am calling them to live in faith and to rest in me. The key to rest is knowing me. For those who truly know me and know my character and ways enter my rest. My people will know me by studying my word and walking closely with me. For my past faithfulness in their lives is a testimony to them who I am. Psalm 46:10, surrender your anxiety, be silent and stop your striving, and you will see that I am Yahweh. I am Yahweh above all the nations, and I will be exalted through the whole earth. Psalm 37:7, rest in Yahweh and wait patiently for him. This goes on to say, I heard the Lord say, don't give in to fear, for that will lead you to take steps in your own strength rather than on leading of my spirit. And what you will build will be in vain, for it will not be of me. The enemy is sending a targeted attack on my people to attempt to bring fear just in this critical time when it's important for my people to stay in a place of trusting my timing. If you align with the enemy and step out of my timing, you will miss the greater door of advancement and harvest that is open to you. This article goes on to say, steps in your own strength to move. If they should take steps in their own strength to move their plans forward, the enemy will whisper lies to them, and they will miss the opportunities that Yah has for them, and they will miss his timing, and because they've done everything in their own strength. So trust is the commodity here that we need to walk in. We need to trust him in all things at all times, even in the places where it seems dark. Well, if we remember, it says in Psalm 18:11, he made darkness his secret place. Yeah. His canopy around him was dark, and waters and thick clouds of the skies. Times are dark outside, but our Yah is far greater than anything that we're going through. And he wants to be the one that illuminates our circumstances, not some false illumination that we strive for. Trust in him, rest in his house, take refuge in him in that house, and that will be the fence of protection around us when we trust. As we're starting to close and we'll get ready to go over to the website, I want to just say this. One more time, I will say of Yahweh, he is my refuge and my fortress, my Yah, in him will I trust. What we say, remember what I said before, releases his strength and power, and it bursts something. He is the right hand. He is power and strength. When we say he is the Lord of our refuge, we're saying he's our protector. He's the one who separates us from the enemy. He holds us in his heart, and he gives us the support we need to receive the revelation directly from the Father. So we can say clearly, you are my refuge. When we say he is our fortress, as we discussed last week, we're saying he's our righteousness in Yeshua. It's Yeshua who went to the cross, who went to the stake to connect us. He is the door, and he gave us interest. When we say he's our God, he's Elohim, we are saying we believe in you. We trust in you. We trust in you to make the choice to take care of us in all things. So my question is, can we start living as a people from trust, true trust, out loud so that everybody can hear? And I'd say in this day, in this hour, we better figure it out. And we may fail, brush ourselves up and start again and be quick to repent. Father, I didn't trust you on that one. And my actions and my heart and my thoughts showed it. But no, I'm going to do better. Take your thought captive and let everyone see whom you trust in. Did you have any final words?
Well, I do. And when you were talking about that position of rest, one of the things that I was thinking about is how that really connects us to Ephesians in chapter 6, where it's talking about the whole armor of God. And the armor, of course, is really our priestly garment. That's what that armor is. But one thing that it says is having done all, stand. And so, in other words, resting is not apathetic, but like what you were saying is that a lot of times we are pushing things in our own strength until we simply, maybe we say, well, I give up. Well, is that rest, or did we just give up? But when we move in that position of rest, it's not apathetic. It's actually very active. It's an active position of standing. And again, not only is that a priestly garment with the full armor of God is really the priestly garment, but once we're standing, then that's wedding language, because we're standing there with whom? We're standing there with our bridegroom. And so it's not an inactive position, and it's not passive, and it's not apathetic. It's very much active, where we are finding ourselves confiding, or shall we say embracing, or holding to, or clinging to our bridegroom. And that's really where that position comes. I thought that was really good.
Agreed. It is good. Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us. If you would give us a thumbs up and like us and share us on your social media, we would so much appreciate it. Let other people hear this message. If it blessed you tonight, other people need to hear it too, because we live in times where we need encouragement. We may know some of this, but to hear it over and over again, it lifts up our spirits.